And hello, welcome to another episode of AWS on Stack Overflow. My name is John Rotenstein. I'm a technical evangelist at AWS, and I spend a lot of my time answering questions on Stack Overflow. Hello, Ec2 glad to have you on the show. Have you ever answered any Stack Overflow questions, Ec2, or anyone else really? This show is all about learning from Stack Overflow, trying to help the community in answering some questions and having a bit of fun on the side as well. So we'd love to hear from you all. Where are you from today? Have you used Stack Overflow? Lots of fun things to cover today. I found an interesting graphic. This one is a little bit old. It looks like this was posted on Stack Overflow Meta. Stack Overflow Meta is a site where you discuss things about Stack Overflow, a bit like Inception. And this is a bit of an old chart, but it's interesting. It shows, let's zoom in a bit, where people tend to come from around the world. And it looks like a lot of people contribute from the United States, India, parts of Europe, but the rest of the world is quite massive. And you'll see the shape. The shape here tends to drop off on the weekend. And I live in Australia, so my Saturday is still in the American Friday. So there's lots of things for me to answer on Saturday. Sunday is very quiet, so I sort of feel sad on Sundays when I can't answer many questions. But on Monday, when we're up and working again, it's still the American and European Sunday, and there's nothing to do. So my Mondays are sort of a weekend as well for Stack Overflow. So let me know in chat where you're all from. Do you use Stack Overflow? Have you ever answered a question on Stack Overflow? We'll try to answer some of them here today. Let's have a look here. So in case there's people out there who have not used Stack Overflow is a site where people can ask questions and get an answer. And it's really a wiki in that people can edit content on there. You can improve formatting, you can improve answers, you can go back and improve things later on. So Stack Overflow is really an attempt to create a huge encyclopedia of question and answers based around programming questions. But the definition of programming is a bit difficult these days. You know, where does the cloud fit in? AWS Lambda is our serverless compute, and you can program against it. So got a programming question, great. But people often have questions about how to configure security in a Lambda function. So the definitions go a little bit extreme. So let's go through and have a look at some questions here. Now, one person cannot answer everything to do with AWS, and I certainly don't know everything. I've got some favorite services. So I generally look at the headings and go through and try to pick an answer that I can provide, which of course shows the importance of putting a good heading on your question. If you can provide a good heading, it'll attract people like me who might be able to answer it. Whereas if the heading is a little bit off topic, it can be harder to do. Athena, AWS Athena, Amazon Athena, is our service that allows you to query content in Amazon S3 across a whole lot of files stored there. So instead of loading data into, you say data or data? I think Star Trek always had commanded data, but I say data. Athena allows you to query information across a whole lot of files without loading into a database. So let's have a look here. Looks like they're asking some SQL questions. SQL distinct on one column but return several. This is a standard problem with SQL. How do you remove duplicate rows on data and yet show multiple? So you might have, let's say you have multiple temperature readings for a day, but you just want to show the first reading for a day. How do you say, I just want reading one per distinct day? And Athena uses Presto. So if you're looking for SQL syntax, you have to look in Presto to get the right syntax. So they want to get a distinct line item, but they also want to return everything else. I know that Postgres has something called distinct on, where you can nominate which column should be the distinctized one, but I'm not too sure whether Presto supports that. No, so it looks like somebody's asking for distinct on capability already within Presto. So that one doesn't look easy. No one's answered. I'll leave that for somebody who knows Presto a little bit more. Oftentimes you just can't answer things on AWS. on Stack Overflow. Here you'll notice a little tag. So questions are tagged with topics that help people identify what they want to answer questions on. So for example, I've set up a search here that says I want to see any Amazon star or AWS star questions. So I'm searching based on tag to find questions. And I've got a little grease monkey script, or tamper monkey, set up to find me some incorrect tags. So Lambda says here, do not use for the AWS service. Lambda is a programming concept of an anonymous function. So they don't like doing that. So what I've got is a little grease monkey script. Purely by opening this question, I have a little script that will go through and correct the tags. So here you'll see it's in red. If I just refresh this page, it's already updated to the correct AWS Lambda page. So if you have enough reputation on Stack Overflow, you can also go through and improve questions, answers, and update the tags on things there as well. Can I answer this question as I'm doing it? They're using Python. I like Python. How to change the font size of the email body in Lambda Python? Lambda doesn't do email. What's going on here? They're constructing a MIME email to send content out. How are they sending the email? Send email. HTTP connection. They're manually sending email to an endpoint. I'll leave that one alone. Let's have a look through. Oh, auto scaling. I know auto scaling. So if you're watching today, come and say hi. The whole idea is to have a nice chat amongst the community as we go through answer questions. If you see any things that you know to help me answer questions, by all means, let me know. So the poster says, I'm a bit confused and need some advice. I have an auto scaling group. The health check is 5 minutes to mark the so there's a few errors in this question, so I'm actually going to edit it as we read it. Introductions like this saying, I'm a bit confused and need some advice, don't really help future readers from reading this question. So it's quite acceptable to edit the question and remove that and just get straight to the point. I have I also like to expand abbreviations, an auto scaling group. Now there's lots of auto scaling in Amazon, so I'm just going to say it's Amazon EC2 auto scaling group. Health check is 5 minutes to mark the instance healthy, and default cooldown is 4 minutes. So let's see, a cooldown for auto scaling. The whole idea is auto scaling wants to add and remove instances. It actually launches new instances and then terminates unused instances. And there's a cooldown period to try not to flap. So flapping is when you launch an instance because things are not enough capacity, and then adding that instance adds too much capacity, so it removes it, and then you don't have enough capacity and it keeps adding and removing, which is not good. So there's this concept of a default cooldown period that applies to any scaling activities. You can optionally request to have it applied to your manually scaling. So is there a definition here? To prevent your EC2 auto scaling group launching or terminating additional instances before previous activities are visible. Let's see how that relates to the question we had. So their cooldown is 4 minutes. So they don't, once you add or remove an instance, it won't do anything for 4 minutes. They have a scaling policy that will check if the CPU usage is at 70% for n data points for 1 minute and add n instances. So they're adding multiple instances where it's the same n for the data points. I don't understand. Will I have an issue? Does the scaling policy add to the default cooldown timing? My understanding is that I will have an issue due to my default cooldown being less than my health check time. Okay. Scenario, when new instances are launched and health check hasn't passed yet, 5 minutes, and another scaling happens, 4 minutes. Is this okay, so let's, do they have a good title? Auto scaling health checks in relation to cooldown. Looks good. Let's now try and figure out what they're asking here. Does anyone understand this question? Anyone out there into? For those of you who have just joined me, hi, my name is John Rotenstein. I'm a technical evangelist or developer advocate these days at AWS, and I like answering questions on Stack Overflow. If you've ever used Stack Overflow, drop a message in chat, say hi to me, and we can answer some Stack Overflow questions together here. So this person has auto scaling, a health check duration. So the health check duration says if an instance is unhealthy for a certain number of tests over a certain number period, then it will kill off that instance and theoretically replace it. And the cooldown says auto scaling. Oh, okay. So I think they're worried, saying, what if I added an instance in auto scaling and my health check found an instance was unhealthy? Will that matter? So Marcin from Perth in Australia. You online, Marcin? Hi there. It depends on the scaling policy. What policy do you use? They scale in if CPU is less than 25 for 10 consecutive periods of 60 seconds. They're using very short scaling things there. Remove 2 instances. Wait 2 minutes before allowing another scaling activity. 70% for 60 seconds. Add 3 instances. They probably don't want to be adding that many instances. Let's try something here. Now, of course, we don't know how many at a time. We don't know how many instances they're running here on their system. So one instance might be tiny, it might be big. Now, the health check shouldn't really interfere with the cooldown. Avoid adding remove instances before the metric settles. So cooldown is good. Sometimes it takes an instance a few minutes to get up and going and serving traffic and handling it. So you don't want a metric giving a false reading before that happens. So they're really saying when new instances are launched and the health check hasn't passed yet, and another scaling happens. What are they asking? Anyone got an idea of what they're asking here? It's a little bit unclear. But the health check is on new instances. So the nice thing about Stack Overflow is you don't have to get things totally right all the time. Other people can come along and provide other answers, and people can come along and correct your answer, and you can always delete your answer if somebody shows that what you've done is incorrect. So a lot of people are afraid of answering things on Stack Overflow, but I found if you have some knowledge and you can help somebody else, then go and do it. Getty, thank you. Sounds to me like if an instance becomes unhealthy within 4 minutes of scaling, will the action be taken? Yeah, it's a little hard to know what they're answering, really. I'll drop this in chat, and you're welcome to ask them a comment or see what's going on there. A little bit difficult to see there. Where are you located, Getty? I'm in Sydney, Australia. It is Wednesday here, around about 11 o'clock in the morning, so coming up to lunchtime. Is there a way to stream data from EC2 to local memory? I want to generate synthetic data in an EC2 instance and stream it directly into the memory of my local machine for deep learning training. Is there a way to do this in Python? What is synthetic data? Synthetic data. Any production data applicable to a given situation that are not obtained. Do you think data is plural or singular? I always use data as singular, and then I hit sentences like this where it says the data are, and it always confuses me. Production data applicable to a given situation that are not obtainable by direct measurement. Anonymization. I have no idea what all of that is. May not be found in the original data. Useful when designing types of systems. Who knows? Greetings to Arizona out there, Exegeti. Now, even if I don't know what synthetic data is, what are they trying to do here? They're generating something in EC2 and stream it directly into the memory of my local machine for deep learning training. You can do formatting and comments if you know your markdown commands. So are you trying to say you're sending it from EC2 to computers not in AWS, e.g. in your home or office? What do you mean by stream it directly into the memory? If they could have a web server, they could. You'd need to be running something on the machine. Datum is singular, data is plural. Datum is singular. So if I have one datum, does he mean stream some buffer data? I'm thinking it could be that. So they effectively want to receive something on their laptop that they then process locally. They'll need a web server or something sort of receiving it. Who knows what's going on here? I'll put that one, the one into chat in case any of you might know a bit better. Datum. I will add my datum to that question. Thank you for that. By the way, Stack Overflow is just one of many sites available on the Stack Exchange network. And if we go for Stack Exchange, you can view that there are many sites available on the Stack Exchange network, of which Stack Overflow is the biggest. And there is, of course, one for English language and usage. So if we went to this one and did a search, data plural. Let's see. Data as a plural noun, duplicate. Lots of people are asking for this. What's a highly voted one? Let's see where they point to. So if a question on a Stack Exchange network has been answered elsewhere, then they like to close it as a duplicate. And we can have a look here. It seems like AWS is better suited to server fault. So this is the interesting thing. Thanks, Exegeti. So officially, Stack Overflow is for programming questions. And there are these other sites. I showed this in a previous episode as well. We have some other popular sites like Server Fault, which is for system and network administrators, those neckbeards who sit in your office all day with 16 terminal windows open, doing lots of amazing stuff. Or there is Super User, which is Q&A for enthusiasts and power users. So that's more like, let me ask you how to use Microsoft Office type thing. And there's some other ones out there to do with specific operating systems and all that. So a good question is, where do Stack Overflow questions belong? Is it Server Fault? well, Lambda questions are not necessarily networking and server, so who knows? So I try to answer questions wherever they appear. And somebody here is saying, I don't want people giving me a long thing. I just want to know data R. I recommend using data R rather than data is. The reason? Scholars believe that logically, if datum is an English word for a single piece of data, the data must logically be plural. The fact that most people do things differently only means to them. So professors will go mad at you. That's the answer to this thing. So were we answering a question here? I think we'd finished. Let's look for some other questions here. Remote desktop, that sort of thing might go better on a server fault type of site. Spot instances, love Spot instances. You ever use Spot instances? Love it. Hey Jelly, good to have you online. Jelly is one of my favorite answerers on Stack Overflow. If I get distracted yet again and pop over here to the Amazon Web Services tag and go to my top users, we can see quite a few top users out here. I must congratulate Chris Williams and Martin for doing utterly amazing work in the last 30 days. Like, I thought I'm pretty good, but they've just thrown me out of the court here in doing some of these things. So Jelly, there you are. You've been a little slack of late, but thanks for your contributions so far, of course. It's good to see lots of people answering. Mr. Bob, if you're online, thanks very much for your contributions there. So love seeing more people coming in. Look at that, amazing. Between them, they've answered 500 questions in the last 30 days. That's phenomenal. Whenever you answer questions, you of course gain reputation, and reputation gives you access to more things on Stack Overflow. Spot and EKS is great, though I hear ECS may be replacing that for cost savings. Ooh, what do you think about mine though? Worked for 2 days on it. Okay, is that just spam, or are you an actual person in chat? Let's see, requesting Spot instances. Does anyone have any guidance on what is the most efficient way to launch an EMR cluster using EC2 Spot instances? I can talk about that. I'm using a 10 node blah, and usually I will clone a previous instance. What's been happening more often than not is I get an out of capacity error. When that happens, I change the subnet and try again. It's really a guessing game at this point. I'm sure there's a much better way to do this. Unfortunately, I haven't found one. So Spot instances. Actual person. When I check it out and show it to the stream. I'm very careful about showing links on the screen that I haven't pre-checked out there. I invite our viewers to click on the link and see what's there. Thanks, Matthias. So several things being spoken about here. Amazon EMR is a MapReduce cluster running Hadoop that allows you to run across multiple nodes. And in doing so, they're very fault tolerant. So you can lose a node in EMR and it will cope with it and continue processing. So it's an excellent use for Spot instances. So Spot instances are EC2 instances that we provide at a lower cost, up to 90% off. But we might take them away from you at any time. So let's have a look at Ec2 Pricing and have a look at some spot pricing that's out here and see what's going on. I am in the Sydney region, so I'm going to change to Sydney. All pricing is in US dollars, however, but I'm showing in the Sydney region. And let's say we go for maybe an M. They were using an R5D 8 extra large. R5D 8 extra large, which is this one here. So what's the headings on this row here? Sorry for the scrolling. The headings say Linux usage, Windows usage. Okay, and these are for Spot instances. Okay. R5D8. So it is saying the spot price for, let's go for a Linux machine, is 60 cents in the Sydney region. And if we have a look at the on-demand price, yes, I have keyboard shortcuts for everything, in the Sydney region, R5D8 extra large. It is normally $2.78 per hour. Has 32 CPUs, 128 gigs. That one. Who knows what the second column is? Might be a local storage. Anyway, so $2.78, and the current spot price is 60 cents. So 60 cents, 6064 divided by 2.784 is 20% of the price. So yeah, it's about 80% off. So there, spot instances can be handy. So you can launch a spot instance. We might take it back if we need some of those instances. So if we have spare capacity, especially at nighttime, like in Sydney daytime, we might use a lot of machines, but at nighttime in Sydney, which might be your daytime, you can get some really cheap questions in there. See you, Matthias. Yeah, thanks for all that. And Mr. Bob is saying something here. Haven't used EMR and Spot. Wonder if they just need to diversify and make sure they use AZs. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, so the whole idea is Spot Fleet. So Ec2 instances, the capacity limit. So we have a region. In the region, we have multiple availability zones. In the availability zone, we have lots of instance types, and we have a certain capacity of instance types. So if you ask for a machine to launch in a certain AZ, let's say US West 2A, and you ask for a particular instance type, we might run out of instance types there for spot instances. But availability zone B might have plenty of those things. So the idea indeed is to diversify across multiple availability zones and multiple instance types. And we have this concept called a spot fleet, which is a collection of instances. The request for spot instances is fulfilled when there's available capacity and the price you specify exceeds the current spot price. Pricing is less important now for spot pricing. It used to be prices go up and down a lot. Now they're very consistent. But the neat thing is you can create multiple pools. A pool is a set of unused Ec2 instances with the same instance type, operating system, availability zone, and network. So the trick is if you allocate spot instances across multiple AZs and multiple instance types, then if we take away an instance, you'll probably only lose one of those pools, just M3 extra large in availability zone B. So the trick here really is to diversify. The question is, can EMR use a spot fleet? A bit of new EMR instance fleets, 2017. A new feature called Fleets give you a wider variety of options around instance provisioning. You can specify a list of up to 5 instance types with weights and spot bid prices. EMR will automatically provision across these instance types when making. You can also specify a list of AZs and will launch across, in one of these AZs. I wonder if the whole cluster goes in the one AZ, or if you can have instances running across multiple. I can understand the benefit of doing a whole EMR cluster in one AZ. EMR multiple AZs. Who went off already? Okay. Can you run multiple? You can select multiple subnets for different availability zones. Looking good. So let's grab that. I have a nice little utility here that grabs the page for me in Markdown format. And let's give a bit of an answer. When I change the subnet and try again, it's a guessing game. You can use instance fleets to specify multiple instance types, availability zones. Instances. Thank you very much. We'll scan that person and I'm not sure how to get rid of it. Oh, okay, they're gone. Thank you very much for that. This means if the capacity of an EC2 instance in one AZ runs out, you won't lose all of your instances. Spread your time, spread your nodes across multiple pools of capacity. It won't all disappear once. Is that good enough? Giving them a link to the page. And let's also link to this What's New article from 2017. Fantastic. Love Spot Instances. Why people do it otherwise, I don't know. In fact, I have some old links here. I wonder if I can find them. Reference Spot Instances. Spot. There used to be some really great examples. Why can't I find my Spot instance? Here it is. Spot. That's an old one, but I'll show you. That's an old one. That's good. This is a bit of an old article, 2013, but it was pretty amazing when a group got together and they created a whole lot of a cluster to processing. So they ran some quantum chemistry software across 156,000 cores in 8 different regions. They did on the weekend when things were quiet, except for Sydney because it was sort of daytime then. And they completed it in less than a day for $33,000. So you might say $33,000 is a lot to spend in a weekend. But the alternative was, if the same numbers were crunched on their existing 300 core cluster, it would have cost $132,000 and taken more than 10 months. So they managed to do it all over a weekend in a fraction of the time and for a quarter of the cost, which is pretty neat. Love examples like that. And this is gone. There was a wonderful, we'll see if we can get it. There's a list of let's see if AWS is mentioned. No, it isn't mentioned. Somebody put together a cluster of EC2 instances on AWS, and they managed to get in the top 500 supercomputer rankings just by joining together a whole lot of computers. So you too can have your own pay-as-you-go supercomputer, hopefully on Spot Instances. Let's be distracted. I've got a few links here to show you about things. I can't remember what they are. Let's have a look at a few of these things. Oh, this is something I found. This is relation between tags in Stack Overflow. So it's a little bit hard to see there. Sorry about that. So it looks like there's a whole lot of languages. Give you this as a link because you can hover over it. So you can see certain languages. I'm a Python person. Let's go to Python. It looks like it links to regex, Django, JSON. If you're doing HTML, it links to JavaScript and CSS and forms and HTML5. So there you are. An interesting visualization. .NET relates to C#. That makes a lot of sense. Isn't that pretty? Related tags on Stack Overflow. What else do I have here? Oh, this ties in nicely to our talk about EC2 instances. If you ever want to compare EC2 instances, there's a huge number of EC2 instances out there. In fact, I did this the other day. AWS CLI describe instance type offerings. We have this wonderful command here where you can now go off and say, please tell me what instance types I have. So let's give it a go. I can go AWS EC2 using the command line, the AWS CLI. I want to do it in my region, so I will say it's in the Sydney region, AP Southeast 2. I can then say, let's just give that a run and see what comes back. So I get heaps of instance types in the region. So what I can do is I can use the query parameter to say, just give me back the instance type offerings dot instance type. Put that in quotes. And it's come back with lots of them. I can then say output text and pipe it through a word count, give me a word count. So that did not work too well. Oh, it's coming out in lots of columns. I know how to. Here's a little trick for you. If you find that the output of your AWS CLI is coming in multiple columns, like the tab separator or something, it's awful. If you wrap the last element in a square bracket, they'll all come back as single lines. And I can then pass that through word count. So it's saying that in the Sydney region, I have 227 different instance types, which is very, very painful. So do not fear. Here is a handy website called ec2.shop. I have no idea who made this. They haven't got their names anywhere. And it looks like they're offering a very simple way to get this list of instances. So let's try this for the Sydney region. AP Southeast 2. This is new to me. Use Ec2 Instances Info. Yeah, that one's an old one as well. This one just appeared recently. Ooh, it looks like you can basically get that instance information back from them. And then you can say, only give me certain types of instances or give it to me in a different format. Or if I type a keyword here, maybe I can say R5. Yep, and it reduces it down to the R5 instances. So there's another one for you. If you want to find instances, sort them by memory, that sort of thing can be handy. Let's try that other one, Ec2 Instances.info. This one's been around for a long time. GitHub or something. So this one has some really good search capabilities in there as well, and you can filter things, which is quite nice. Look at their GitHub. Few contributors there. Fantastic. So go for it. Any other random diversion I had here? I think I showed this one already. That was that user graphic. How about, I was going to show this. This is another relationship graph from Stack Overflow from their recent developer survey, which is showing how technologies are connected. Similar last year, we see a large cluster of web development technologies connected via SQL to one for Microsoft technologies. So, sorry, a little hard to see there. Related. So what do we got here? We've got things like Python connected to some Python projects, Linux, Python, Docker, AWS in there, various different languages, Dart, iOS, Swift, Objective-C. So the interesting thing here is there's a whole lot of disconnectivity, a whole lot of similar languages connected together. Looks like AWS is mostly connected to Redis, Postgres, Docker, and DynamoDB and Terraform. It's an unusual grouping in there. If you want to read it, the Stack Overflow survey is an interesting read. A few things I might point out over here. If you are not a big Stack Overflow user, I've got a little sort of trophy thing that comes up and shows a score. Whenever somebody comes and accepts your answer, so there's a green tick that might appear next to an answer, which means the person who asked the question has accepted that as a good enough correct answer that they can change their mind later. You receive 15 reputation points. If somebody clicks the up arrow on a question, they receive 10 reputation points. So you can see here I've got a number of questions that have been given over the last day. And my personal goal is to try and get 200 points in a day. And if I do that enough times, I get a badge for achieving it. What are badges? If I go to my profile and look at my badges, Stack Overflow is all about gamification. You earn badges. There are bronze, silver, and gold, depending on what you're doing. And there is a badge here called Epic. And I got this one by earning 200 daily reputation 50 times. So if I answer enough stuff or I have enough back history of questions to get it, then I can earn this badge. So there is also a limit every day where you can't earn more than 200 reputation points from upvoted answers. So this is a way of rewarding you. Sorry you didn't get the points, but we'll give you a badge for handling it quite nicely. Also reminds me I should talk about the Stack Overflow room. You'll find a link to it in my bit.ly site here. The Stack Overflow room that we have is just a little gathering on Stack Overflow. I'll put it in the chat, where a few of us hang out answering Stack Overflow questions, such as Chris, Dennis, Jelly, you're back in, that's good. So feel free to pop in and ask for help on some Stack Overflow questions that might be out there. You're welcome to join us in answering some questions out there. Hello, mysterious random user who just joined in. I love when AWS adds features like this. EBS Snapshot Manager. A general chat that we have in the room. So, quick poll. How many of you out there have ever upvoted an answer, a question or answer on Stack Overflow? Upvoting, of course, means just clicking on these little arrows. For a question, it says the question shows research effort is clear and useful. If you are upvoting an answer, it says the answer is useful. This is a way of rewarding people who have spent time on Stack Overflow and saying, hey, thanks for doing a good job. Makes people like me go, ooh, they like what I'm doing, and I will answer more questions. Anyone ever done any upvoting of questions or answers out there? So if you don't, and you end up landing on Stack Overflow, lots of people land on Stack Overflow when they're searching for information. I highly recommend you create a Stack Overflow account. Just create a username, password. When you see a question that helps you, just tick the up arrow, and the person answering it will feel a little bit better. There's also another icon up here, which is when people respond to you. So it looks like, oh, okay, thanks to the amazing, whoever that was online, added an additional comment on that question. So any question that I've participated in by adding a comment or adding a question, I will be automatically notified whenever somebody else participates on that question. So maybe they're providing an answer to something or something that I want to be involved in. So it's a good way of coming back. I've also got a little utility installed that my toolbar can tell me if somebody has done something, so I can go back quickly. Jelly, you need to have enough rep in order to upvote others people's answers. So let's do a quick check. Stack Overflow reputation levels. Let's see how that works. Privileges. So upvote. Upvote is not on this page. Let's see, I'll vote up. So yes, you need 15 reputation points to indicate when things are useful. How do you get those 15? Well, you can create posts, ask a question or contribute an answer. You can basically ask questions, answer questions. You'll eventually get enough votes. If you answer a question and somebody marks it as upvote or something, you get the 10 points. So that's really quick. So pretty easy to get to those 15 points. They just do it to avoid people doing spam. You can then, you can talk in the site's chat room if you have 20 points. So make sure you have that. Leave comments on other people's posts and reduce ads. I normally turn off ads anyway. Create tags. Tagging is important to have correct things out there. So I like improving the quality of tags all the way up to accessing site analytics. That'd be interesting to see what people are querying on to get there. Trusted user, expanded editing, undeletion, etc. Let's go back to some questions. I think I marked some questions before that I wanted to look at. You can bookmark questions and they'll come up in this bookmarking list. We've done the spot instances. Mark this one for some reason. Getting a duration of a video on S3 with blah blah lib. I'm trying to get the duration of videos in my .NET web application. When the files are local, I can get it to work very well using WMP-lib's window media player class. But when the file is stored in AWS, it won't work. I've checked all the file permissions, made the buckets folders itself public, but it won't work. If I put the same file on S3 on my machine, the local video's duration returns, but the S3 video comes back as 0 every time. If I put the same file on S3 on okay. So what are they doing here? They're using some library in C# called WMP-lib, and they're creating a new Windows Media Player. Okay. So they're saying here, if they provide a local path, they get the information back. If they're providing an S3 path at 0 seconds. I'm not married to using this project. It's the one that seems the most reliable. So I sometimes see this a lot when people are coding and they want to use S3. Not every library out there understands how to use S3. If they're expecting a pointer to a local file on disk, you normally you can't just put a thing for S3. So if we do this, let's see if this thing can handle, oh, that's the question we just answered. Oh, we're looking at. I can't see, let's put that in quotes so we definitely get those words in the search. No, looks like you can't specify S3. And what's the parameter there? Use my clipboard utility to repaste wmlib. And their method says it's a URL, system string URL. It's the digital media file. Oh, it's a URL of the digital media file. So it can be a URL. It doesn't have to be a local file. I take that back. Can you show us a sample value? According to this page, oh, that's a different library. Oh. They are using this thing. So I asked a question there. I did not provide an answer. I'll actually get rid of my answer. If you are asking a question back to the person asking the original question, you're meant to put it in as a comment. The answer should be reserved for a solution to what's being asked. So you should never really ask a question in the answer section. So see if that person can provide it. It looks like the this IWMP media might be I for internet or something, so they can do it. I might have got it totally wrong. Security group does not belong to a VPC. So I saw that somebody had been answering this one, and Chris Williams, excellent answer, has been answering this. And I wanted to show it because it's been going on a fair bit. So sometimes people ask a question, they don't provide enough information to immediately come up with an answer, and you have this back and forth going in. And Stack Overflow isn't really designed as a chat area. If you want to go and have a chat about something, I highly recommend you visit the AWS Reddit channel, where there is lots of information and great for chatting. So let's try and pick a chat topic here. Is it possible for S3 to trigger Lambda, but the Lambda be too fast to get the actual file on the first run? No, that should always work. And here, lots of people can ask back and forth. So Reddit is a great place to have discussions. If you ever want an opinion, I always say Reddit is a great place to get opinions. There's plenty of them there. Stack Overflow is more the place to get the straightforward answer, just do this. And sometimes questions will be shut down in Stack Overflow because they haven't given enough information or they want opinions, and I will refer the people to answering things on Reddit. So definitely participate on Reddit for that sort of thing. So generally, try to avoid long discussions that go on in here. I don't know if we can try and reproduce this problem. Since Chris has been working with them, I'll take it that it is not an immediately obvious good answer. Just want to point out that long one. Extracting data from Amazon Ion file. Has anyone worked with the QLDB Amazon Ion files? Now, I don't know about you, but I had never heard of these things. What is QLDB? Our quantum ledger database. So a couple of years back, blockchain was all the rage, and people wanted to say, hey, I want blockchain. Can you do blockchain? Everyone wants blockchain. But AWS sat down a bit and said, hold on, how are people really using blockchain? Are they just using it for Bitcoin, or are they using it for legitimate purposes? And they came up with two services. One is the AWS Managed Blockchain, which is more your traditional blockchain type thing, where if an organization wants to create a shared repository blockchain, then this is the service. So the whole idea with blockchains, I highly recommend. It's a fascinating topic. Have a read about what the topics are. It's a distributed ledger. So many people have a copy of the ledger. Every additional block that gets added to the ledger has a checksum from the previous block. So it's very, very hard to go back and modify history unless you have a lot of computing resources that can overwrite everything that's been done since then. If you want to do that sort of distributed blockchain, this is the service. A great example I heard one time is that there's some country in South America where if you bribe the right person, you can get somebody to modify the official records of real estate and say that you actually own a certain property. And then you can go and kick the owners of that property out and say, hey, I own this house, get out of here, which is a real problem if you can bribe people and get that sort of thing done. If, however, that land registry used blockchain and they had a distributed ledger where everyone can see, hang on, you tried to modify that record, but we have a record here that's been authenticated that person A owns the property, not person B, then blockchain is an excellent use case. There's actually a lot of very legitimate use cases for blockchain technology out there. The other use case we came up for was some people didn't want to have a distributed ledger, but they wanted to be able to prove that information did not change. So let's say there was a court case and somebody said to the bank, we had $1 million in the account, you took the money out of my account. The bank will go, oh, no, we can't take money out of your account. And they might go, well, hold on, you've got a database administrator in your, what permissions they have? Could they go in and change that record? And they go, well, yeah, we've got log files, but they might be able to delete the log files as well. So what's needed is some way of saying, hey, this record has not changed, and I can show you the history of every change to that particular record from the very beginning of the database. And that's what Quantum Ledger Database is all about. Fully managed ledger database that provides transparent, immutable, and cryptographically verifiable transaction logs. So it's immutable, which means you can't go back and change stuff. And it's proven through using blockchain type cryptographic technology where you have checksums that carry through the blocks. But it is not a distributed ledger. You don't share it out to other people. Other people don't do mining, but you can verify the historical chain of transactions. So I think Ion is similar to Google's protobuf. Protobuf. Protocol buffers are Google's language neutral extensible mechanism for serializing structured data. Okay. Pick your favorite language. How do I start? Let's see. AWS Ion file. There's an Ion file. QLDB uses a data notation that defines Ion with a set of partiQL. Oh my gosh. I have no idea what this is going on about. Open source, richly typed, self-describing, hierarchical data serialization format. Okay, so yeah, it sounds similar to what that protobuf is doing. So it's a way of interchangeable, human readable, machine readable. There we are. I've learned something from that. No way can I answer this question, but I just wanted to talk about QLDB. Now, they have tagged it with QLDB in here. What I might just do, however, is expand the definition here. So where was my tab? Oh. AWS QLDB. The official name is Amazon Quantum Ledger Database. Amazon Ion files. Let's actually put a link to there. It's sometimes nice putting in links to things. Amazon Ion files. Fantastic. I have no idea about anything else. Inline or added link. So much that I don't know WorkDocs. Now, WorkDocs is probably a product that a lot of people have not had a chance to use. I was trying to think, how would I describe it? Is it a little bit like Dropbox? Is it a little bit like Google Docs? It's sort of a mixture of all of those things. So we use WorkDocs internally to share files around and to collaboratively work with each other. So it's probably worth showing a little bit of an example. Here's some documents I've uploaded to WorkDocs. So in this case, I've got some episodes of our certification quiz show. Some of you might have watched earlier today. And I can also add things like a spreadsheet. And the neat thing is I can, for certain file types, I can view them in the browser. So I can see here what is the content of that spreadsheet. I can then edit it. Edit it normally involves, however, downloading it and editing on your machine, or there is a cloud-based editing system that you can use in there as well. I can also collaborate with other people on things. For example, here is a directory of presentations that various people have made over time, and they can share the presentation. Here's something from IoT Transformation Day in Madrid. And even though it's a PowerPoint file, I can view it in line here. So I can view the PowerPoints. And I can even come in and offer feedback. So I could say, oh, you've got a spelling error here. So I can just highlight part of that document and won't save it and say there is a spelling error. So have you ever had the problem where you've got a document, you send it around for a few people for feedback, and then everyone comes back and they've marked it up all individually and you've got to come together and do it. So this is a nice way of just doing a web-based collaborative editing. People can mark feedback on there, and then you can look at their feedback and combine it all together. So that's what WorkDocs generally does. Does WorkDocs provide an API to lock or unlock a file? I could not find a reference. There was no answer to this earlier today, but an hour ago, Ashish said, I think only web client and mobile supports this. Now, I don't like how they've put this big URL in here. Let's have a look at it. So what I will do is clean up their answer a little bit. From that article, do the pretty formatting. So that's it. Remove the name. So this way is just saying, hey, here's a link to the article that you're interested in, and there's what it said. Some people get a little bit scared when they edit other people's answers because they think they're sacred and only the person who answered. In this case, I didn't change what their answer was. I just improved the formatting, made it easier for somebody to use in future. So I think that sort of editing is quite okay. You also get some badges for editing answers that are out there, editing questions and answers. Java. Now, this one I want to mention. I mentioned before that the importance of having a good title on Stack Overflow is quite important. And in fact, you cannot create a question on Stack Overflow that has the exact same title as another question. So let me ask you, is this likely to be the only question in the entire world with the title of JavaScript Response Object? First of all, it's not a great description of what they're asking. And secondly, it's a very general type title. So no one else could create a question with this title. So let's have a look at it, and we might be able to improve the quality of the title that's out here. Working on Lambda, creating a method using Node.js. I'm having an issue to create a JavaScript object. So it looks like they've got a list that contains dictionaries. The dictionary has an ID and a wrap-up, which is a dictionary that contains a name. Okay. I want to show ID only once like this. So they want a dictionary containing ID, wrap-up, and multiple names. So, yeah, okay. I'm having trouble to create a response. I did see that somebody came and helped out a little bit before, suggesting that they create a list. Yes, that's it. That's it. So if we look here, oh no, it is a list of dictionaries. So I just want to improve the title. Can you think of a nice title for this one? Hey Rixay, thanks for joining us here on AWS on Stack Overflow, where I get to try and answer AWS related questions on Stack Overflow. My name's John. Thanks for joining me here. What do we got here? So what's a better name for this? JavaScript response object. I hardly know what they're even trying to ask here. I don't understand that. Could you update my code? So here is somebody who's being a little bit persistent. Those of us who answer questions on Stack Overflow do it for the love of doing it, to get a bit of a reputation, to feel good. And the question asker here, Tab, has come in here. Let's see. Somebody has answered 9 hours ago. And then 8 hours ago, Tab has said, bro, waiting for your response. And 7 hours ago, he's come back, bro, I appreciate your effort. Can you update my code? So Stack Overflow is not a site for answering, for coding for other people. Sometimes I write little code snippets and I give it, but you shouldn't ask people to write things for you. And somebody here has given an answer, but then they deleted it. I don't understand. How can this be part of my code? Can't you just update my code? And that person 8 hours ago has deleted the answer. So the question asker is being a little bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say needs detail or clarity. If I do this and the question gets no answers for a while, then it will automatically be deleted. If people provide better answers, then it will hang around. I'm not even going to try and improve that because I have no idea what it is. SSH, I love SSH tunneling. So quick recap, SSH is used to log into Linux type instances. You can do tunneling by passing a port to your foreign machine. So what this particular command is saying is, please SSH P, is that the port number? That's interesting. SSH with -L, which means port forwarding, redirect my local port 8080 to a machine with a domain name of MySQL. On that machine, connect to this host. Redirect port 8080 from my machine to, and on this particular host, send the output to the DNS name of MySQL on port 3306. So this is being used as a bastion server to get through to a private subnet running a database. So they've got an SQL server running in a private subnet, not accessible from the internet. This server they're connecting to has a host name. It's sitting in a public subnet, and they're redirecting their local port 8080 to that machine to then send the request to their MySQL 3306. My cron job. I want to create an SSH tunnel via my cron job. The cron job is running, log is also generated, but SSH tunnel is not opening. So what are they doing here? Does that mean every minute? Every minute of every day, SSH into that machine and send something to a local log file. I saw this one earlier today. And they say, why do you want to run an SSH every day? I can understand wanting to have an SSH session in the background to do something, but normally if you have port forwarding, you just want it persistently open so you can continually use things. So I don't know why they're trying to open it. And also, if they really are trying to run something in the background, they're not backgrounding it. The ampersand here says, if that command worked, then do this next command. But they're not putting it in the background. So it's as if the SSH command might be shut down by cron and it never continues. So I'm suggesting they put an ampersand. But I love port forwarding. It's a really great thing you can do to get to systems behind the scenes. Hibernating. I didn't have an answer for this, so we'll work on this together. Oh, Stefan, Mr. Bob, you've answered already. Hibernating EC2 Spot instances. When is it possible? When is it not? I'm confused about when you can or cannot hibernate Spot instances. So hibernate is when you go to your computer and rather than shutting down or sleeping, which chews up power, you can hibernate. Hibernate on a machine will save the memory to disk and power down the machine. And a while back, log what's new EC2 hibernate. A while back, we added the ability to hibernate EC2 instances. So in 2018, and the great thing about that is you can turn it off, but when you turn it on again, it effectively continues, allowing it to pick up exactly where it left off. So this is a great way to save money at night by turning things off, but not have to redo anything the next day. available on certain instance types. You still pay for the EBS volumes that are attached, and if you have Elastic EC2 instance attached to it, so you can then just go and hibernate, which is really neat. And then Hibernate Spot Instances. We introduced another thing. And so traditionally Spot Instances, love talking about Spot today. I've never used the EC2 hibernation feature, says Jelly. We should almost give it a go. Let's see if we can launch an EC2 instance while we're chatting, see if it works. Should I do Windows or Linux? It's less obvious when things are running in Linux. Let's do a EC2 instance. Windows. Beautiful. Actually, I already have a Windows instance. We can use that one. Here I've got a Windows 2019. I will start that instance. Made a few days ago. So, Spot Instances. I've heard it's popular for security researchers to look through around contents. Yeah, this is really, really interesting. And it should have been on that page we looked at before. EC2 hibernation. Encrypted. So, it saves the RAM of the computer to your disk, so when it starts up the next time it resumes. If you've ever used Windows and looked at the disk partitioning, you'll find these big files in there for where it saves a hibernation file. And that's not good because it means whatever is in memory is effectively saved to disk, and people might be able to steal your passwords or things you had in memory. So when an instance is instructed to hibernate, it writes the in-memory state to the root EBS volume and then effectively shuts itself down. The AMI used to launch the instance must be encrypted, as must the root EBS volume of the instance, to provide proper protection for sensitive data when it's copied from memory to the EBS volume. So you must use an encrypted volume. Of course, if you have rights to use KMS with that volume, you can get access to the data on there, but it's our additional way of saying you want to be careful, you want to protect this, that people can't get through things in memory. So yeah, Mr. Bob, security researchers love pulling things out of memory. I had a system one time in a company where it was an important system that had some keys that like went to our bank account and things like that, and all the access information was kept in an encrypted file. But then the problem was, where do we maintain the encryption key to make sure it only gets it? And what we actually did, we didn't have a KMS system. We broke the key into two parts, and so if the system was ever restarted, two different people had to enter their halves of the key pair into there. So one person could never do it on their own, they had to do it. The downside of that is if the system goes bad over the weekend, you can't reach the two people, stuff happens, but it's always a difficult situation there. Let's see if I can go into my Windows machine. Connecting. I've got to open up my security group. I have a little script. I'll show you my little script, it's quite handy. This script goes off and curls my current IP address and then authorizes a particular security group on port 22 for SSH and port 3389 for RDP. So if I go to a new network, I can just run that handy command. If I now go back to this thing and try connecting to it again, we'll probably have some more success. I can remember password. Okay. I have a Windows instance. What can we do here to make it more obvious? I can open something in my desktop. Run lots of stuff here. Come on, Windows. I will type something halfway in that thing, misspelled hello. I will go to a web page. Sydney Morning Herald.com.au, the Australian newspaper. The state of Victoria in Australia has had a spike of things, and New South Wales isn't too bad. So we've got that open, and I go into here and I don't have a Hibernate option. How do I activate Hibernation on Windows? Power and sleep settings. Power and sleep settings. Could you do it in the web console? Well, the operating system itself has to effectively turn itself down. Could it be that AWS is doing this rather than the operating system itself? That could be a good point there. Let's go back to EC2. Point to that instance and say instance state stop hibernate. The instance did not have stop hibernate enabled when it was launched. Launch an instance. Select Windows. T2 medium should do. Where's Hibernate? Enable hibernation. To enable hibernation, space is allocated on the root volume to store the RAM, so it's outside of the operating system. That's fascinating. Make sure the root volume is large enough to store the RAM contents and accommodate your expected usage. To use hibernation, the root volume must be an encrypted EBS volume. Okay, we shall do that. Shall add storage. Must encrypt the volume. I'll use my default EBS KMS key. Add a tag. The name of the instance will be Hibernate. And I've got a little cleanup script attached to my machine. I can just say cleanup T for terminate. And tonight, if I forget, it will actually terminate the instance. Security group, so we can connect to it. I will use my RDP access. Give that a few minutes to launch. This will be interesting. You may have to run power config exe hibernate on. So the interesting thing here will be, is it Windows that is hibernating, or is it the hypervisor that is suddenly stopping the instance, pausing it, grabbing the memory, saving the memory to disk, and the instance itself doesn't even know that it was hibernated? This will be interesting. Why are we talking about this? Here's the question. I'm confused, so are we. With Spot Instances. Under hibernation prerequisites, the documentation says it's available for on-demand and reserved instances. It is not available for Spot. For more information, see hibernating interrupted Spot instances. So this is the EC2 user guide that is talking about hibernation only on certain instance types. Yes, I launched one of them. On supported AMIs. Does it not do Windows? Linux, Ubuntu. This is the guide for Windows, for Linux. So hopefully it will still work for that. Because I tick the box, it should work. But the following article says you can set instances to automatically hibernate upon interruption. Okay, so they're getting confused here in that hibernation, when launching instances, is for you to be able to specify, please hibernate this instance. Whereas for Spot instances, if a Spot instance is terminated, it used to be interrupted. It used to be we'd terminate the Spot instance, it was gone, but we now allow you to hibernate the Spot instance, so when the money comes, when the Spot instance capacity is available again, you can resume your Spot instance. So I think they're getting those two concepts mixed up. Let's grab our instance here. I will say get Windows password. I will choose the key pair that I have. That one. I will copy that key pair. No, I will decrypt it. Those of you who are fast enough can probably copy that. I'll make sure I shut down my instance after a while. And now I want to get the public IP address. Go to my Windows thingy. Let's edit this one. Put that machine in. Save. Open. I love doing little experiments. Best way to learn things in AWS is to play around and Try some things out. While it's doing that, let's go back to the console here and see if I do have the Hibernate command. I can choose Stop Hibernate. That's excellent. I love how it pops up and tells you why you can't run things. When running, please only select instances that are stopped. Let's go back to the instance. Okay, I'm going to run Internet Explorer. I'm going to open up some files here. I'm going to type something in there. Internet Explorer probably won't take me anywhere because of all the security settings. Type something in there. Okay, now let's go and try and hibernate this machine. So it has, oh, that's the wrong machine there. I can disconnect from you. Disconnect. So it has thrown me out of my hibernated machine. It is stopping. You have a security group set up, not able to hack from my IP. Ah, excellent. Even though you might have copied the password, my security group is limited to only me. Too bad. Yes, I never recommend having your RDP or SSH security group open too far. So that is stopping. And okay, it's already stopped and it's hibernated. So now let's go back in and start that instance. And what I would like is when I go back in, I've got exactly the setup that I had, the words half typed, which tells me that it did not shut down and restart the machine. And the question is, did it tell the operating system to hibernate or not? So we'll see if hibernation was activated inside that machine. So what explains the contradiction? My guess is you cannot manually initiate hibernation from a Spot instance, correct? But you can configure a Spot to hibernate automatically upon interruption. That's perfectly correct. Oh, and they said that. I think it's supported as oh, Mr. Bob, what are you saying? The page linked to the next sentence, hibernating, describes the requirements imposed on Spot instances. So, Mr. Bob, you've no doubt researched this already. I think they're correct, though. I think they cannot manually hibernate a Spot instance. I'll just add a comment. Cannot manually. Okay, let's have a look at this instance. Let's reconnect to it. It's changed IP addresses. Always a catch. When you stop and start an instance, if you haven't assigned a static IP address, the IP address changes. They're always easy questions to answer for people. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Paste in my super duper password. Yeah, if anything ever hangs, 8% of the time it's security groups the problem. Look at that. They've got my misspelt cheese up there. They've got my, oh, I didn't save the thing that I typed there. There might be Windows that did that. Yeah, Windows overwrites it, so it wasn't that. But it's definitely halfway through that browser window, so it did do it. And if I go in here, I cannot specifically hibernate that thing. So it looks like they did it from the, I'm still not 100%, but looks like they did it from the hypervisor type thing. If we looked at the disk, there's one partition, so I wonder where they saved it. Did they use the, I have no idea if they're using the operating system or not. So, but that's hibernation. Worth a bit of playing around with. Stop my instance without hibernation. Bye-bye. That was fun. Okay, anything else fun out here? Best way to query data to achieve minimum latency. I need some advice. Uh-oh, advice asking, always a problem. I have around 50 gigs of JSON data in an S3 bucket with around 200 attributes. I presume they mean within the JSON there are attributes. And now I want to accept this using a REST API with some filters. I tried storing the data in DynamoDB, but it has a limitation. We can only filter data based on keys, and to filter on the new key, we need to first create a global secondary index for the same. Also, this serves the request slowly. How can I improve the search? Millisecond latency. I'm just going to go in there and improve a few abbreviations. Global secondary index. I'm also a stickler for punctuation. I would like suggestions. There was also DynamoDB with the wrong case, which upsets me terribly. Where was it? Here it is. And I'll let other people figure that one out. Not able to go cross-account. I always... I'm getting a forbidden error when accessing cross-account S3 buckets, but I'm able to access the bucket using the AWS S3 CLI. Okay, so it looks like Lambda, yeah. I've tested the code in June and it was working. The Lambda role, which allows anything in S3, which is always dangerous. The code is working with S3 bucket in the same account. In account 2, all list, write, read operations is given. I'm able to list the bucket contents. So they haven't used a bucket policy. So let's think about this. Account, call them A. Account A wants to access data in account B. For a user in account A to access something in S3, they need two things. They first of all need permission in their local IAM to use S3. So here's the interesting thing. If somebody in account B adds a bucket policy that says you're allowed to read my bucket, but the user in account A does not have permission to use S3 themselves, they can't use it. So it's actually two things. The user has to have permission to be able to call S3 in general, and the other bucket, the other account, needs to allow that person to come in. So if they haven't used a bucket policy, the only way this would work is to assume a role in the other account, because a user cannot access anything in another account. Found out the issue. Oh, it was happening because I didn't apply object level ACLs to read the object. So what they're saying here is the other account at the object level has made the object public. So anyone in the entire world can read it, which isn't necessarily great. But still there's one issue. There can be multiple files for whom I want the head object to determine the size of the file. Asking the customer to put the object ACL one by one on each object is not user-friendly. Hey, Classic Gamer. So, one problem here, they're asking another question sort of in here. They should be adding that as a comment. Okay, let's try and solve this. Let's see. Scenario. User A in account A. Bucket B in account B. User A wants to access objects in bucket B. I always find it a bit easier to clarify things like that. By the way, I love touch typing. Touch typing is a fantastic skill. I'm amazed with the number of professional IT experts who can't touch type. If you want to improve your touch typing skills, I always like to mention that Type Club, I do not get a kickback from them. Can't type their name either. Typeclub.com is a Type, not Type Club. I've forgotten their name. Typing. I'll use my social bookmarking website to remember which are the good ones. Type Racer is a good one. My son showed me that a while ago. Typing Club is the other good one. So typing club, it gamifies touch typing. So you can come in here and you can say, I want to learn typing, and create an account. It will occasionally ask you to upgrade to a paid account. You don't need to. You can keep doing it. My son did 600 lessons in there, and it all works quite nicely. So you can go in here and it teach. Okay, it's got a video. It'll teach you typing, but this one's fun. This is an online. Some of you can do it with me. Enter a typing race, and it finds people online, and you race against them. And I don't know if this is real people or not. Get ready to race. Deep pile carpet. You've got to get every letter correct. Now, the interesting thing about copy typing, which is what I'm doing here, is I can carry on a conversation while I am actually typing, because my eyes are connected to my fingers, and I don't have to think much about the things that I'm typing here. Though I'd probably go better if I did. Oh! Did I win? I came second. That wasn't very good. And here are other people still typing. So I don't know if it's simulated from other people with various typing speeds or whatever. So I had 64 words a minute, and the first place had 122. That's not good. I'm jealous. I won't try it again. But typing is a really good skill you might want to have. So this thing, user A must have Amazon S3 permissions. What did they show up here? They showed, this isn't a user, this is a Lambda function. So let's correct this. This is a Lambda function attempting to accept. Okay, so we don't have user A, we have Lambda A. And Lambda A wants to access. Okay. So Lambda A must have an IAM role with Amazon S3 permissions, access the remote bucket. Similar to the so I think they're granting total S3 permission here. They're saying this Lambda function can do anything to S3. Also, account B must permit access. Two ways. You could add a bucket policy. The IAM role being used by the Lambda function. Or, what else is here? You won your typing race 101 words a minute. They made me take a test on capture image to prove that I wasn't a robot. Robots can type fast. Okay, so we have permission to go to S3. They're accepting of our bucket policy, or the Lambda function has been granted access to bucket B. Your method or are they just saying a particular user has it? oh no, they've added a canonical ID in the access. Public is not screen access. So they really should add a bucket policy. Okay. I think it's time for a typing race. Let's go back to that. What was it? Typing race. The bucket policy would require two allow permissions correct, bucket name and bucket star. Yes, depending on what operation they are doing. If they just want to allow get object, and if you know the name of the object, then /star would be enough. But some commands require permissions to be on the bucket itself. And I always get confused about which things that is. S3 permissions on bucket versus object. I wonder if anyone's ever given a nice article on how to do that. I always have to test it to see I've got it right. Let's give it a go. Let's say they just want to retrieve an object and they want to list the contents of the bucket. Let's give that a go. I will call this stack elusive for the elusive nose. I will keep it private. Stack elusive. Let's create a, what are we doing here? We're going to create a bucket policy and use something from a different account. This will be a bit hard. Actually, I have a better way of doing this. I have a user in IAM. Get rid of all policies off this user. Let's give them some permissions. I want to create an inline policy on S3. I want to allow get object and I want to allow list bucket. So it looks like get object requires an object and list bucket requires the bucket. So if we go into configure here, I can say which bucket I want it on. And which object, anything. Let's have a look at the policy it generates here. So it has created a policy that says I can get object and list bucket. Yes, and it's done it both on that. So it looks like list object needs the bucket name and get object needs the /star. So it's always confusing which way you go between them. Okay, I'm going to do another typing race. What was that called? Type racer. I went to a shop recently about keyboards and they were saying the red buttons, yellow buttons, green buttons, all different clicky type things. Okay, don't know if any of you are in here. We're on Twitch, we may as well play games like that. Typeracer.com. Now's your chance. I won't talk. $101 words a minute. Take a short typing test. This is done to discourage cheaters. They're saying I'm cheating. I don't understand. How did I get one? I came third? Gosh, luckily for Alice, the little door, oh, this is what you mentioned, you had to do the capture thing. Completely, I must. Congratulations, I've been certified as 90 words a minute. Oh, crap. Nice fun. Okay, so what are we doing here? Was I going to test the bucket? No, I was just seeing about that policy. I think I'm happy there. Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we might call it a day. Lambda not able to access. We did that one. Pass S3. Move 100 Lambda functions from one region to another. An old one that I had stored away. Quick check to see if anyone's posted any new Stack Overflow questions I want to answer. SCP from a local computer to an Ec2 instance. Permission denied. Who's jumped in here and answered? Data mine. He solved his own problem. This is actually a good example. Here's somebody who asked a question 57 minutes ago and they answered their own question 29 minutes ago. This is fine. This is even encouraged on Stack Overflow. So if anyone else has the problem, hopefully they can find it. And it looks like they got things working with sudo.
Just a tick.
My Siri is talking to me. Thank you very much for that. Siri, hey Siri, what time is it? Hey Siri, what time is it? Fantastic, isn't that good? Here in Sydney it is 12:40 p.m, which means it's lunchtime for me. And attempting to cache S3 files. Let's go out on this one. See if I can figure out what they're trying to ask here. I have two pipelines that I run. The first pipeline reads files from S3, does some processing and updates the files. Okay, where are they running? The second pipeline is this code pipeline? Nope. The second pipeline runs multiple jobs, and for each job, I download files from S3 and produce some output. I feel I am wasting a lot of time on my second pipeline by doing multiple downloads, as I currently do not cache these files when I'm using them for multiple jobs. So in that light, I'm attempting to cache S3 files locally. I did some research and figured out S3FS or FS-spec can be used. Oh, I hate them. So far, I'm able to download and open a file from S3 using S3FS, but I'm not sure how to cache it locally. S3FS turns S3 into a file system, so you can mount it on your systems. I normally don't recommend using S3FS because things can go funny under production usage. They're using pandas. As you can see in my code, I'm opening a file from S3, reading it into a data frame. I'm wondering if there is an argument or something I can pass that this file gets cached. The alternative approach, of course, is I can check if the file exists in some path, yes, and if it does, use that, and if not, download it, but I feel like there must be a better way to do caching. I'm open to any ideas. Well, that's how caching works. Do I have it? No, go and fetch it. If I already have it, then just use it. So I like their file system approach. S3FS will cache some things locally, but then the problem is, what if the file changes remotely? When does it invalidate the cache? Whenever I say cache, I always think, of course, of geocaching, which was a fun pastime. Being replaced now by things like Pokemon Go, but the whole idea with geocaching is that there are treasures hidden in various places around the world, and your job is to go and find them. This is a great thing to do under lockdown if you just want to explore your local area. So here in Sydney, I can zoom in and find a whole lot of, their smiley faces are ones that I've found, and various other ones are hidden around. So you can go to your various location and try and track down. There was one cute one over here. Where is it? Yes, it's still there. One called Oh My Darling. And Oh My Darling is on a bridge going across our Darling Harbour. So this lovely thing, it's hidden on this bridge, and can't quite see it here, but there's a little control tower on this bridge. When it used to be it's not a drawbridge, it actually rotates and opens to allow ships to go through. You can see the flagpole stop in this section and it rotates. And there's a little guardhouse there with some metal steps leading up to it, and there is a magnetic cache attached to the bottom step that you can go and retrieve it. So it's great to see, except it says that I haven't solved that one, and I know I have. Oh, I am logged in. Must have been replaced. So that's caching, geocaching, whatever you want to say there. What are we doing here? All I can say to this person is, oh. Now they're not using Lambda. In Lambda, the container the Lambda function runs in can persist for multiple executions of Lambda functions. So it's quite common that the first time you go in, you might download a file into the Lambda container. Future executions can check whether that file exists and it doesn't have to download it again, but this isn't a specifically Lambda type question. Okay, it's been a while, so I might say thank you very much for having joined me on AWS on Stack Overflow this week. I hope it has encouraged you to answer some Stack Overflow questions or ask some questions out there. And at the very least, if you see some good Stack Overflow answers that have helped you, please tick that up arrow. It makes people like myself, Jelly, Mr. Bob, etc. Feel better about answering all of your questions. So thanks very much, and look forward to seeing you again. I think we're on next week. And enjoy your Stack Overflow until then. So thanks very much. Cheers.